Have you ever seen your shadow move when you didn't? I used to play shadow puppets with my daughter. I don't anymore. We were sitting in her room. It was just before bedtime. She has this super bright pink flashlight she got from a relative. We ended up putting up a blackout curtain in her room because she has a hard time sleeping when there's any light visible. Now, I obviously was no shadow puppet savant, but I could do the basics. Dog, other dog, dog with two hands. You get the idea. My daughter mostly just liked to pretend to eat my hand with hers because she could make her shadow bigger than my hand. That was until I heard something go bump in her closet. Now, the bump itself could have been anything, but it took my attention away long enough for my daughter to start giggling. I had dropped my hand after I heard the noise. I know I did. My hand was in my lap. She had laughed and asked me, "How are you doing that, Papa?" And before I saw what she was talking about, I answered her, "How am I doing what's?" I couldn't even finish the thought before I saw it. The flashlight was still beaming onto the wall. My daughter's hand was not in the light. My hand was not in the light. And yet there it was, the shadow of my hand, suspended in front of the light. I remember staring at it, unable to decide what I was seeing. I didn't know how to react. And before I could, my daughter decided to just flip the light off. She had asked me if I could show her how to do that trick sometime. I was still trying to piece together what happened. That was where we called it a night. Even while I got ready for bed, I couldn't help but keep looking at my own shadow, trying to catch it doing something it shouldn't. My wife had fallen asleep already, but I just laid in bed, wide awake, trying to figure out whether I was going crazy. Then I did something really stupid. I got curious. I left the flashlight in the living room, deciding not to leave it with my daughter for the night. I got up, I had to sanity check for myself. I figured the living room was a dark enough place for testing, so I turned on the light and faced it to the nearest wall. I watched it for a few minutes before deciding to actually interact with it. Surely I was just being paranoid. I hesitated, like someone does before they jump into a pool. Slowly, I moved my hand into the beam of light. It may have been my anxiety spiking, but it really did feel like plunging my hand into cold water. I eased in my fingers, then my palm, then up to my wrist. I watched my shadow. I moved my hand up and down, flipped it over, and flexed my fingers. Nothing happened. I sighed, then I'd heard it again, the same thud I heard in my daughter's room. I pulled my hand out of the light and squinted into the darkness. I couldn't make anything out. I turned back toward the flashlight. Then I saw my shadow. The shadow of my hand was still suspended in the beam of light, just like last time. I looked down at my hand, honestly, just to make sure it was still there. I flexed it. It still felt cold. I stopped short of picking the light up. I couldn't help but stare. My brain didn't know how to process the information it was being given. Then it twitched. The shadow twitched. I flinched at the motion. It's hard to say whether my freeze response or my curiosity was stronger in the moment, but I didn't touch the light. The next movement wasn't a twitch. My shadow then moved up and down, then turned and waved. I felt sick to my stomach. I watched as my shadow began making shadow puppets. The only thing I could interpret was the dog mouth I like to do with my daughter. A tingle ran down the back of my hand. The shadow stopped suddenly, holding perfectly still. The fingers of the shadow then splayed and turned flat, so I could only see a flat image. Then I saw a finger rise from the flat shadow. It went up and up and up. The shadow faltered as the finger started moving backwards. I flinched as a disembodied popping noise came from seemingly nowhere. The finger began jolting backward, each joint bending unnaturally backwards, until the finger was curled backward at all the joints at extreme angles. My pointer finger on the same hand felt like it was bathed in static. The popping resumed again as another finger started rising from the shadow. I clenched my fist as if to deny the shadow the ability to bend my fingers. It did nothing. I heard her voice before I saw her. "What are you doing, Papa?" My daughter's voice broke over my own fear. An instinctual reaction, one of protection, snapped me out of my daze. My hand flew toward the flashlight to shut it off. I recall telling her it was nothing. I was just testing something. I could barely keep the shaking out of my voice. I only remember her asking innocently whether I was practicing shadow puppets. It's been a few days now. I threw the flashlight away. I told her it was broken. The joints in my hand are sore. They feel loose. Sometimes I feel like I can see my shadow changing out of the corner of my eye. I feel pins and needles crawling up my arm. When I move around, I can hear popping coming from somewhere that isn't me. I'm sitting in my daughter's room right now. The blackout curtain is drawn. I don't want to cast a shadow. I don't want to play shadow puppets anymore. My neck is starting to feel sore.